Now, the other issue, and somebody who's become a bête noire, certainly of the mainstream media and liberal tendencies within, is Associate Justice Minister Nicole McKee. For some strange reason, and it's never really properly been explained to me, Wellington Liberals hate guns. Don't know why. And in a funny sort of way, the Christchurch Mosque massacre played into that narrative quite nicely. Look, madman goes mad with guns. And we led to, of course, the appalling massacre that happened in Christchurch over the two Muslim mosques and the loss of over 50 people through such an individual, not a New Zealander, I might add. Look, he had a gun. Couldn't have done that with a knife, would be the argument. And that's probably true. He probably couldn't have. But in the wake of that particular massacre, a whole series of regulations and confiscations were imposed, and regulations imposed upon the gun-owning community of New Zealand, who, as a general rule, hadn't been a problem. The kind of people who tend to be a problem with guns are unregistered gun owners, or, I don't know, particularly gangs. And how many murders have we had in Auckland this year? I think we've had 10 in the last month, many of them with a firearm involved, and I would not mind betting them, all of them being utilised by unregistered gun owners. But no, gun owners are seen as some form of great evil. Anyhow, Associate Justice Minister Nicole McKee came in with a very strong view, which she had expressed publicly and politically on a number of occasions prior, that she wanted to deregulate, remove some of what she saw as restrictive practices upon responsible gun owners in this country. And she's been working on that ever since. But this has occasioned, well, you'd have to say, a fair bit of upset. And Nicole, the Associate Minister, joins us now. Welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining us, Minister.
Oh, good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Michael.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, Nicole. Listen, as I said, you knew you were an advocate for what was euphemistically termed the gun lobby prior to becoming an ACT MP. You became an ACT MP. You put out a whole series of policies related in specific to that particular issue. You put it into the coalition agreement. It's been a pretty open process throughout. Why are you regarded as public enemy number one in certain anti-gun sectors of New Zealand at the moment?
Well, I can't answer for them except to say that perhaps they know I'm right. I'm right in that the changes that were made so quickly in a knee-jerk reaction hasn't actually created a safer environment for the public of New Zealand as a whole. And we can demonstrably show that with data and evidence. So gun crime is up 18% over the last few years. We had ministers of the Crown saying they were going to get the guns off the streets, and if anything, they put more in the hands of the unlicensed and those that want to use them for criminal purposes. And I've come along and said, hey, look, I have this very clear direction that I want to take New Zealand in regard to firearms laws. I want to make sure that public safety is at the head of it. I've got a background in safety with firearms. I want to make sure that there is not regulation imposed on law-abiding people that doesn't benefit public safety, but actually allows people to comply with the laws. And I want to make sure that the Arms Act is exactly that, that it sticks to its purpose, which is about the safe use, control and possession of firearms by the law-abiding. And when we look at the criminal misuse, they don't abide by that law. So we need to go after the criminals by attacking them through using the Crimes Act, the Psychoactive Substances, Misuse of Drugs Act, the other avenues for them. But the Arms Act review or rewrite is about maintaining that fit and proper element for the law-abiding. Now, you can't really argue that. So I guess the best way for opposition to attack me is to go on all this nonsense, all this stuff that I've already made quite clear about my background, and actually coming out with a whole lot of mistruths about what my intentions are, using, I guess, the groups that I know, trying to use them against me, calling them lobby groups, when they're actually stakeholders that weren't listened to, that were ignored in the first place. One of those, or a couple of those groups of stakeholders, when I was interviewed the other day by TV1 and Thomas Mead, was the Muslim groups. I'd actually was in Christchurch at that time, and I'd met with 5 different Muslim groups. I call them stakeholders as well. But when I meet with anybody related to with firearms, I'm told that they're lobby groups. But at the end of the day, Michael, I've got this expectation that we can make and have and deliver, once again, legislation that has us being the best in the world when it comes to firearms regulation, who's in possession of it, and compliance.
The most recent issue, though, is, and listen, I'll go to specific in a second, but let's just deal with this general issue. You've got Justice Department officials who are saying essentially what you're doing is wrong, or Ministry of Justice officials, and we think something else. I have to be honest with you, Nicole. I've always regarded the Ministry of Justice as peopled and populated for the last 30 years by a whole bunch of left-winging, hand-wringing liberals who are determined to restrict freedom rather than to enjoin it. When you read that, did you just go and put it to one side?
In some respects you do. I mean, they've got to actually point out what their concerns would be if you don't go out for full consultation. And I put through an order in council to give immediate relief to clubs in an area that does not impact public safety. And so in that respect, I thought, well, hey, with what I'm changing, has no impact on public safety. Let me give you an example of what's actually in the order in council that they said they had big concerns about. They were worried because when a club member has to report on the club, I basically have said in the order in council, if nothing's changed since the last report, then all they have to do is give a statement to say nothing has changed. If something's changed, they've got to do the full report again. Another piece in there is that if they're selling ammunition, but the ammunition doesn't leave the range because it's being used on the range, then they don't have to go and give all the financials for that ammunition. What we know as licensed firearm owners is that they still have to record who they were giving that ammunition to and make sure that they take down details of a licensed person when they're doing that. So there's no impact there on public safety. So in some respects, Michael, I did say, well, yep, I get what you're saying to the officials, but there is no public safety impact here. What we do have coming is another piece of legislation which is going to make further changes to clubs and ranges, and that's in the form of a bill that will go to select committee that will be open for public consultation. So really, I think they are just, I'm not sure what they're doing. I'm trying to get relief for those that are trying to work in the area. Most of them are volunteers, trying to give them that relief that they need, while at the same time getting public consultation on the things that really matter. And I think this order in council was very minor, had support of the Cabinet, and wasn't as big as what they're making it out to be.